Appeals Heating meeting to order. The first case on our agenda tonight is 35 Mountain Road. Mountain Road's going to be continued. They've asked to have it continued. Somebody have a motion?
Make a motion to continue to our next meeting. When is that?
February 1st.
February 1st?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to continue 35 Mountain Road to February 1st at 7:30. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. And the next case, Richardson Road, has also been asked to be continued to February 1st.
Make a motion to continue to February 1st?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to continue Richardson Road to February 1st at 7:30. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, the next case on our agenda is 1 Raymond Road. If the applicant's here, if you can please go up to the microphone.
Hang on 1 second.
Can you hear me? Yep, thank you very much.
Mine's off. Oh, geez, no. Hang on. Okay, there we go.
Technology. Okay, 1 Raymond Road. So I just don't know if you have anything else to add. We did receive your plan. I'm sure the board will have some comments in a minute. Just wanted to see if you have anything else to add before we talk about it.
Mola? No,
Okay. So everybody received the plan, had a chance to look at it. John, I guess we'll start on with you. What do you think?
I thought we had the agreement at 120 square feet. But now that he's asking for more, I'd be more inclined to go with what we agreed with the last time.
Okay, any other comments? Mark?
I tend to agree, but I'm willing to listen if you have something else to say about it, and then listen to the rest of the board.
Do you want to address the 120 square feet that we talked about last time, the 15 by 8 versus the 8 by 20?
so they went home and I'm Joanna, by the way, just translating and sitting in for moral support, if that's okay. So they went home and thought about it, and the way that they placed their shed, they're placing it closer to their own property, so they're no longer requesting a side variance. And because they have that extra room, that is why they're going with the larger shed, because they do need it. And they did their best to follow all the rules per zoning bylaws in Article 5, 5.1.3, 5.1.3.1.2.3.4.5, and .4. They've met all the they have met all they're within the bylaws. Their only thing they're asking for is the rear setback.
Okay, thank you. Joe, do you have any comments?
Yes, I seen you redid the plot plan, but I don't see a revision date. Plot plan still is dated 2018, so who
So
did the
they-
changes?
So they have went and tried to get the professional plan done, and they aren't able to for months. So,
How do we know these setbacks are gonna be right?
Okay. Yeah, so I had the same concern that it wasn't done properly, but I think that if we, somebody were to make a motion with a 1-foot rear setback with the size of the shed, including the height, to be off the, say, the corner of the house, or maybe not to be more than 16.7 feet off the side setback or something like that, we could probably do it without having to have them get a plot plan. Just gonna take a little bit more verbiage.
And the fire department gave you leniency, but the building department did not, so you still gotta be 15 feet, so there's gonna be some restrictions with some fire code, because your shed's only 6 feet off your home. supposed to be 15.
So,
So I'm in favor of a height restriction and
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
you're supposed to be 15 feet off your house with a shed.
15 feet off the house, okay,
You're only 6 feet.
okay.
You got a lot of combustibles in there, so it goes 15 feet. So they would allow it if it was fire rated, which your walls and your ceilings would have to be fire rated. So I'd be for it if we restricted the height to 7 feet and the walls and the ceiling were fire rated. And that would be sufficient with the building inspector.
Is it material?
It's
You have
it's
to use the
sheetrock, 5/8 sheetrock.
right?
Yep,
5/8 sheetrock, the fire coded sheetrock?
yep.
Or it's
It's
not-
gotta
not
be
the board?
inspected with, yep, your local official.
Yep, so, yes.
So only for, only for the wall that,
Yep.
So let's talk about that for a
We gotta
second.
put the restriction in.
So you're saying that, well, if they were to pull a, well, when they can go and pull the permit for this, wouldn't the building inspector have to require that anyway, if it's part of the code?
I'm assuming so, yeah. He's the one that mentioned it.
Okay. So I don't know that we need to put it on as a condition. I think I'd prefer to.
Just a height restriction.
Yeah, I think I'd prefer the building inspector do that, but we can continue on. Jeff, you have any questions?
You guys have pretty much answered everything I was gonna ask, so.
what the hell you fire code?
Same, all my questions have been answered.
So I had the same comment, some of the other board members as far as the size. Thought we were pretty happy with the 15 by 8 size. I don't really see a reason for the 20 by 8. I guess that's my comment. You know, I don't think it needs to be that big for the size of the lot where you're trying to store in there. Like, if we were to grant this, it's already gonna be a very significant variance, as far as rear setbacks go. So I think making it on the smaller side, I think makes the most sense for the, public good of the area. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks.
I agree.
I agree.
So regardless of, I'm sorry, am I able to
Sure,
speak?
absolutely.
So regardless if it's 8 by 15, or right now, they're requesting 20 by 8, the request is still a 1-foot rear, no, sorry, 14-foot variance.
Yeah, it'd be, looks like you're asking for to be 1 foot off of the property line, so.
Go back to, Nicole.
Go back to 120. And so the material still needs to be fire code, up to fire code?
You would have to prepare for that, but the building inspector will follow up on that.
That might be a condition of the, getting the building permit from the inspector. I don't think that'll be a condition of this board at the end of it.
Is this mandatory or it has to be get ready or have to be?
I think that's something, when you pull the permit, you gotta speak with the building inspector on.
Like to ask the inspector, see what they,
Yeah, whatever they require.
okay.
So I don't think that this board is gonna, doesn't sound like this board's gonna put any restrictions on your
So that's
building
only about
materials.
the building inspector, nothing about the variance for the fire code zero.
There won't be anything in there, it doesn't appear that, well, I can't make the motions, but there doesn't appear to be a condition that will be in there.
So we, use something they call,
What was the height?
as for the
7 feet.
setback variance.咁要見呢個哋
佢依家唔需要，咁你 O 唔 OK 啊？120。
咁
Okay, so do you need a new plan for the 120? Oh.
No, I think we can make it if the board, somebody on the board wanted to make a, motion. It would be 15 feet in length, 8 feet in width, and 7 feet in height would be the restrictions.
We actually, from day one, the plan was 7'3". That hasn't changed from the beginning.
Is that 7'3" interior height or 7'3" overall height?
It's like like a lean-to. It's not, so the highest point is,
Yeah,
the
shed roof.
highest point is 7.3, and then the back is 79 inches.
So this is the one,
Yeah, it was submitted in the first
it was already said
appeal.
the height on that, and you never mentioned any about the height.
Okay. Okay, do you have anything else to add at the moment?
So do you need a 120 square feet plot plan? So you can say,
I don't think so. I think that we can do it without it. So, at this point, the public hearing, we closed that last time. So at this point, if there's no other comments from the board, somebody wants to make a motion?
Make a motion to,
Sir, you gotta mute your microphone.
Excuse me, if you're at home, can you mute? Thank you.
try that again?
Absolutely.
Make a motion to approve a variance for Raymond Road, consistent with the plan, the plot plan dated September 25th, 2018, for a 1-foot rear setback for a shed that is sized at 15 feet by 8 feet and 7 feet 3 inches in height.
Okay, that's pretty good. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? 5-0. So, you're all set. You've gotten the variance.
Thank you.
Hearing's closed.
I'm sorry, the public hearing is,
From the ground, he has a wall and a platform, then the shed. So it's 10 feet from my side, it's not 7.3, it's 10. I've been saying that every week, it's not 7.3, it's 10.
sorry, the public hearing's been closed.
You did nothing here tonight.
Right, we closed it the last time.
Close, close. We just didn't vote on it.
You heard so, right, the past 3 weeks, it's 10 feet, it's not 7 feet 3 from the ground. It's on a platform and a retaining wall. That's not really fair to me, I'm sorry, I've been coming every week and saying,
It's okay.
can it be?
Well, I would assume, my assumption was it was from the ground.
It's not from the ground.
It's got a 7-foot 3-inch height
He
restriction.
has a retaining wall plus the platform, and then he built his wall. So the highest point is 10 feet from the ground.
Okay, again, I'm sorry, the public hearing, this hearing's over.
Yeah, I've been coming every week and saying this.
That's an issue for
How do I appeal it then? So what do I get to do to appeal it? It should be, can you just say it's 7 feet from the ground?
If,
7 feet from the ground.
Yep.
Make an amendment.
yeah, we can,
It's not from the ground.
excuse me. I apologize that you didn't get a chance to speak today. The public hearing has been closed on this matter. If you would like to leave information with Joe Ellen, I'm more than happy to show you how to appeal the decision. The board can talk about editing the proposal, but
You can amend it. Ask for clarification.
So,
sorry, say that again?
Ask him for
the
clarification as to
clarification.
what the actual height is gonna be.
Okay, so then do we have to bring it back next time? We have to bring it back next time? No?
Just amend it.
All right,
Just
so
amend it.
that's fine. So let's talk about that for 1 second. If it's 7'3" from the ground, he's gonna end up with like a 4-foot high shed.
No. We'll end up with 6'6" inside. That's the typical shed that you would buy it in.
Yeah, so I don't understand why we'd have to amend it then.
She's saying it's low.
Right. But if we give them 7'3" from the ground and they build on a platform and it can only be 7'3", then it can only be, 4 foot.
我哋個 ground 唔係
No, you don't, you,
Nothing's clarified.
唔
He's
係
gonna
佢
probably
哋
take
講
the
我哋個
platform
我
out.
哋個
7'3", this wall's gonna be 7 foot.
我知我明白，但係 sorry 呢個係咩？呢個 first 呢個係個 first 圖。
我哋 day one 已經講咗㗎啦
Need to seek a clarification.
under
呢個
Talk it out for a second. So can we clarify that, the height?
No, I'm sorry. What, are we clarifying it for
Yeah,
you?
yes, we need to
Oh.
know if it's from the ground or,
From the ground, there's a 3.5-foot retaining wall. So, do you
Maybe-
need pictures or?
Yes.
yeah, do you have any pictures? Is it gonna be built on the retaining wall?
Okay, explain to them.
There's only 3 pictures.
That's all right. This one will pass it down. Thank you. There you see? So now that's gonna start out already 3 feet higher than what we're telling them.
That's what
So she's right.
I agree.
And also they have a 2.5 retaining wall.
It's already built.
It's already built, that's not what we did.
Yeah, where were these pictures?
It's not just one.
10 minutes
We're
ago.
being lied to, that's why I don't,
Because he had a top over it last time.
So there it is on
Okay.
and we got a 2018 plot plan.
I know the grade slopes off.
yeah, so is it level anywhere with the ground?
It's gotta be from the ground. That's all I would say.
So are they gonna dig and put their shed on the ground and have all the water go into the ground, into their shed? That is their ground.
So, what is that
There-
built on right now? Is that just like a concrete slab? What is that?
That, 係咩嘢嚟㗎？嗰個 concrete
It's a concrete block.
before 係咩嘢嚟㗎？
Before 咩啊
Before-
it was the
That shit.
pressure treated wood.
There's no roof on this yet.
Before it was pressure-treated wood, it was similar to the neighbors, it was pressure-treated wood, but it still, was still at that height.
Nice to have those pictures earlier.
Yeah, we have to change it.
Yeah, I think we
Amend it to the ground.
definitely have to change it.
Right.
It's up on a sill.
I'm willing to amend if you want me to amend that.
Yeah, do we have to make a motion to do that?
Okay, I make a motion to amend the decision of, decision of a few moments ago.
Raymond Road,
Second.
Oh, what are we amending it to?
the height restriction.
Height restriction is going to be from the ground and not from the top of the retaining wall.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. So, second, motion has been made and seconded to amend the original decision on Raymond Road for a rear setback of 1 foot with the height of the shed, or the shed being 15 feet in length by 8 feet in width by 7 foot 3 inches in height, the height starting from the ground. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5 no.
What does, I'm sorry, what does that mean?
What was the height?
So the height has to be from the ground?
From the ground of what? Of
Where is
their
the ground?
property?
Yes.
Of their
Which
property?
side
Of your property?
No, your
Of
property.
their property.
Nope.
So their
Of your-
property,
No, no, of your property.
of their property. So the property is where the retaining wall is. It's
Of your property.
of your
In my
property.
property, but it also, there's different height of the ground. If I follow close to by Church Lane, it'll be 4 feet higher than what it is now. So which side should I follow? Or follow the lowest point close to 3 Raymond Road, which is 3 feet lower?
No, I think that wherever you're putting the shed, 1 foot off of the side, that is the, whatever the ground is on that.
Legal property, legal property.
Is he putting the corner level?
Sorry, can I have one of the pictures back? Ground 喺邊度啊？legal property 個 ground 喺邊度啊？legal property 個 ground 喺呢度。
呢個係 garage 嗰個 ground，即係
Yeah.
garage 線嗰個 height 喺呢
So 呢個 wall 係乜嘢嚟㗎？
呢個 wall 字個後邊嘅 retaining。
但係你個 ground 係同呢個 wall 咁高嘛？
係，如果計車房嗰度 garage 就係呢
I
度。
think that, at this point, if you need any other clarifications, we're gonna write the decision, and then, you can look at that, and you'll have some time to go over it with the building inspector before you get the permit.
OK，你有冇問題啊？有咩問題問到啲面
No.
？OK。
Thanks. All right, the next case on the agenda is continued hearing for Chandler Road. Those applicants are here. Before I hear any updates from the applicant, I did receive 2 letters, one from the planning board, and one from the Conservation Commission. I'm gonna read those into the record, and we'll go from there.
That's fine. I received the one from the Concom. I didn't receive the planning board, so.
Do you have a,
That's all right. I'll get a letter.
all right, this one is from the Conservation Commission. It reads, Dear Chairman Murray and members of the Board of Appeals, this letter addresses a variance request to the 100-foot frontage requirement of our zoning bylaws for property designated at rear Chandler Road, where 64 feet of frontage is located at the end of Drake Road. The Conservation Department discussed this variance request at our most recent meeting on January 13th. The variance request for this parcel has implications that potentially will affect all residents of Burlington because, unlike most other variance requests, this lot shares a border with public land. The parcel is adjacent to the Mill Pond Conservation Area. The Conservation Commission is an abutter to this property. The 64-foot frontage for this parcel consists mostly of wetlands. After discussion of this variance at our most recent meeting, the Conservation Commission was in unanimous agreement that granting this variance request would be a substantial detriment to the public interest. Therefore, we ask the Board of Appeals deny this variance request. Access to this parcel from Drake Road would require that the wetlands frontage be filled. The loss of wetlands adjacent to the Mill Pond Conservation Area would be detrimental to the conservation lands and may also impact residents that abut this property. Wetlands are unique habitats that provide important functions which include removal of pollutants from water through filtration, storage of stormwater to reduce flooding, and serve as an essential resource for wildlife that live in an abutting conservation area. The parcel is also a wetland buffer for the frontage wetlands as well as the wetlands that abut the rear of the property. Any filling of wetlands will require an adjacent replication area. But attempts at wetland replication to replace those that are destroyed by filling are often not successful and they result in permanent loss of an important resource. From Brown and Venom in 2001, Daly and Allo 2015. An aerial photograph of the land for which a variance has been requested shows a continuous forest with several wetlands. The house proposed for this site would require a long driveway in order to access an area where a house would be constructed with adequate setbacks. Cutting deeper in the lot would likely involve significant tree cutting. Extensive tree cutting will essentially destroy the healthy upland habitat. Trees take up water from the soil and exhale water vapor and oxygen to the atmosphere through transpiration. A single oak tree can remove 40,000 gallons of water per year. Source, USGS 2018. The resulting decrease in uptake of water by transpiration that would result from extensive tree cutting could seriously affect water levels on abutting properties. Moreover, forests are essential storehouses of carbon. They remove carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas, from the air. Forests function as carbon sinks, which makes them an important component of strategies to slow global warming. Protecting our forests is one contribution we can do locally to contribute to the global efforts to slow climate change. The adjacent Mill Pond Conservation Area is our largest and most visited conservation property. The 140-acre conservation property surrounds the Mill Pond Reservoir and other beautiful views of the landscape. The Mill Pond Conservation Area and the subject adjacent property can contain numerous trails that provide passive recreation for town residents through beautiful woodlands and traverse healthy wetlands and vernal pools. Existing trails in the conservation area are area abut and pass through this parcel. These are established trails that have been used by the public for more than 20 years. The proposed development would require that existing trails in the adjacent Mill Pond Conservation Area would have to be relocated. Conservation Commission has led several walks for the public along these trails. Cutting of trees associated with the proposed development would also negatively impact the experience for the public that seek to enjoy nature and have a peaceful experience in the conservation area. The benefits of engaging with nature have been widely reported to alleviate stress and anxiety. Source, Robbins, 2020. More of our residents have sought refuge in the town's conservation area during the pandemic to improve their physical and mental health. The encroachment of development near the conservation area would reduce the type of experience residents seek when they choose to recreate in the conservation areas. As you know, much of the development in Burlington occurred before regulations were written to limit the impacts on natural resources. There are limited possibilities for the establishment of new conservation areas in Burlington. It is therefore essential that we place a high priority on protecting and expanding existing resource areas through the acquisition of parcels of land. If this parcel was made available, the Conservation Commission would strongly advocate its purchase to town meeting. We would place a high priority to obtain this 3.4 acre parcel to add to and enhance the Mill Pond Conservation Area. We ask the Board of Appeals to deny the requested variance because of the overwhelming public interest to meet the natural resources of the town in this circumstance. Granting the relief for the zoning frontage requirement would be substantial detriment to the public good. The Conservation Commission voted unanimously to approve and deliver this letter to the Board of Appeals. Thank you for your time and attention. Signed by William Boyven, Acting Chair, Burlington Conservation Commission. All right, the next letter is from the Planning Board. Dear members of the Board of Appeals, the Planning Board would like to support the letter of the Conservation Commission regarding the Drake Road frontage variance. In addition, there were statements made at the January 4th, 2022 Board of Appeals meeting referencing the ability to build a subdivision on this site, comparing the proposed driveway and home as less intrusive. Given the information submitted for the variance, it is unclear that a subdivision would be able to be constructed compliant with the rules and regulations governing the subdivision of land in Burlington. We respectfully request that the existing wetland be delineated on site and that an engineer submit a feasibility determination that a subdivision is possible to inform the decision of the board members prior to action on their variance application. This is signed. Thank you, Burlington Planning Board members. Okay. So after hearing all of those letters, comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. With me at the table is Gary Litchfield, who's my client on this matter. And also for the record, I did receive, I assume the board did as well, a letter from the neighborhood association,
I have not received that, no.
Drake Chandler Neighbors Group. So in any event, it was also advocating against the allowance of this variance, as you might imagine. Just briefly, because I don't want to go through the whole thing like we did last time. We spent quite a bit of time on it, and I'm sure the board's familiar with the issues, but just to kind of summarize from my perspective anyway. I'm not surprised, frankly, that neighbors are against this. I've done a lot of permitting work over the years, and invariably, neighbors who are mostly affected by some proposed development are against it. That's human nature. I don't begrudge that, and I certainly understand the motivations behind it. Whenever you get used to a vacant piece of land being vacant, and all of a sudden there's going to be a structure on it, that's a change that most people don't like. But the fact of the matter is, and I touched on this last time, this is private property, and when you buy adjacent to private property, there's always a chance that that might happen. So that's what we're dealing with here. I understand the Conservation Commission's concern. That was made clear last time, and the letter spelled out pretty much what they said last time. But again, this matter is going to have to go to the Conservation Commission if it gets past this level. That's the next step. So they're going to have the ability to weigh in there, apply the Wetlands Protections Act as necessary, and do whatever they feel is appropriate in order to protect the wetlands and the natural landscape up there, as discussed in their letter. If you look at the the plan that, or the aerial plan, the color aerial plan that was submitted, I think by Mr. Cohen last time, this property, and this is a ballpark estimate, just eyeballing it, is about half a mile from the reservoir, through a whole bunch of woods. We're talking about one house on a 4.5-acre lot, a half a mile from the reservoir. I don't think it's going to be as traumatic an effect on our environment as maybe it's kind of being made out to be, frankly. But again, at the end of the day, the Conservation Commission is going to have the ability to weigh in on this, and if they don't approve it, if they don't submit the permits and approvals that are necessary to go forward, then the project does not go forward. We don't have a wetlands engineer with us tonight because frankly, this is not the forum to be arguing wetlands. Protection Act and wetlands bylaws, that's done before the Conservation Commission. They're the experts in that field, and we bring experts in that field to work with them. So I fully understand Conservation's concerns as expressed in Chairman Cohen's or Mr. Boven's letter. But again, they're the regulatory body on wetlands, and they're going to have the chance to weigh in on this. This body, amongst other things, grants variances. That's what you guys do. That's where your authority is. There's a statute in Massachusetts that sets out the criteria necessary to grant a variance. You have to find those 3 criteria to be present in order to grant a variance. I would respectfully suggest we show that. This clearly is a piece of property that, but for some topographical issues, that this wouldn't be a problem. And those topographical issues, including the wetlands, the shape of the lot, size of the lot, create a hardship. That's step 1 in a variance. You've got to create a hardship that's tied into the topography or the lot. Clearly, that's present here. Derogating from the intent of the bylaw. The intent of our frontage bylaw, I would submit, is to ensure sufficient spacing between houses. We don't want to be Somerville with his 40-foot frontage with a house on every 40 feet. Our bylaws is 100 feet, so that ensures at least 100 feet width of a lot. And then we get 15-foot setbacks on each side yard, so you're assured of at least 30 feet between the 2 houses. We're talking about one house and a 4.5-acre parcel of land. If you look at the plan that was submitted, the house where proposed is more than 100 feet away from the closest existing structure. We're not shoehorning something in here. This is a large piece of land, and we're looking for one piece of property, one house. So I would suggest that it doesn't derogate from the intent of the applicable bylaw, because clearly the intent of that bylaw was 100 feet frontage, creating at least 30 feet spacing between houses, and we meet that. And the last one is does not substantially derogate from the public good. I mean, that's maybe a matter of opinion, and some will say that knocking down trees and putting in a house is not the public good. I would suggest the public good, as spoken in the statute, is the greater good of the town, of the community. Clearly, there are going to be a handful of neighbors who directly abut this who aren't going to be happy that now there's a house back there where there's always been woods. That's, I would submit, is not the greater good. That's their particular interest, and they're part of the public, no doubt about it. The public good, frankly, is what's you know, it's not going to derogate from the or substantially derogate from the public good. We're talking one house and a 4.5-acre piece of land. I believe that if this subdivision project was allowed up here, then I do believe that's possible. You could get at least up to 3 lots in there, along with a cul-de-sac. So if we're going to measure between the adverse effects on the public good, I would suggest that limiting this to one house and again, I mentioned last week, we're willing to put a condition on this variance that this lot will not be further subdivided into any more buildable lots. So you eliminate it to one house with one driveway. That clearly, in my opinion, is less of a negative effect on the public good than potentially having a cul-de-sac with all the hot top that goes along with that, and up to 3 houses back there. That's simple math. So, circling back, I would suggest, and I feel that we have established the 3 criteria necessary to obtain a variance. All of the other things, frankly, that have been brought forward come under the umbrellas of different boards, and when and if we get to those boards, they certainly have the right to weigh in. I've had several projects that you guys granted the variance, this board granted the variance because you felt that it was appropriate under the circumstances, and it didn't get by the next level, and the project didn't go forward. That happens. Every board has their own function and their own areas of responsibility, and everybody does what they're supposed to do. So I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, that we have established the criteria necessary to obtain a variance. I would request that the board grant that variance, and we will then move forward with the project and address the wetlands issues when we get before the Conservation Commission. And I'm happy to answer any questions the board might have or address any concerns the board might have. Thank you.
Jeremy, I'll start with you.
I don't have any questions right now.
Jeff?
So there's no intention of doing any sort of subdivision in there? This is for a single house?
This project, if this, Mr. Litchfield's going to build a house for himself, he's going to live there. And he's willing to put a condition, or willing to allow, agree to the board putting a condition on this variance, that lot will never be further subdivided into any more buildable lots. So you're limiting, by going forward like that, it's limiting to a maximum of 1 house back there. And again, if the variance is approved, we would access that via a driveway off the end of Drake Road, as opposed to having to put in a full-blown cul-de-sac with sidewalks that's required with that.
Okay. And there was talk about walking trails. Are there walking trails coming in off of Drake Road? I mean, it's going over private property. I don't know who would be better to answer that.
Yeah, I'm not familiar enough, frankly, with the property to say whether there are walking trails back there, but you're right. If there are trails, they've gone across private property, obviously, the property owner hasn't had a problem with it, but at the end of the day, it's private property.
Okay. Yep.
Joe?
My overview is you're only asking for about 400 or 500 square feet out of 183,000 square feet to cross over the wetlands to get onto the property.
Via the driveway.
About less than 1%.
Right.
To access the upland side.
Correct.
Which is very significant than the resource area that's reflected here. And the way I look at it is, it looks like Drake Road it's newly paved, the curbing's new, and they left out a portion of it so it would drain off of Drake Road into that little resource area. So there is, you get salt runoff right now, and I'm sure that would, you'd have to rectify that somehow or not, but I'm sure that's causing some of the runoff in that area.
Sure.
That's exacerbating the small little resource area onto that property.
I agree.
And it looks like it's a 26-foot uphill climb to right around where the house would sit.
Roughly, yeah.
So it's not sitting in a bowl, it's actually uphill.
Right. And that would be a driveway going up that as opposed to...
Yeah, uphill. So it's not like it's sitting in any sort of resource area. That's well downhill.
Exactly.
I don't have any further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks. Mark?
So, Tom, you were describing, I know some of the other board members were looking at the issue of the subdivision, and that was the concern of the planning board, which is the feasibility. In other words, if this is the alternative, then maybe you could help even members of the neighborhood or the public understand the feasibility. I know that the planning board is asking you to do much more, but I'm asking you to address it in terms of sort of giving everyone a sense of what that would look like. I don't know whether you want to use Mr. Currier's
I have a copy of that here.
But
I
I know it's always math. You
Yeah,
always say it's
right.
math, Mark.
It's math, and I'll give you an overview, Mark, because I don't have the engineering in front of me, because obviously we haven't designed that. First of all, I'd start off by saying, if we were going to do a subdivision, that goes through the planning board. So again, that's where they get to weigh in on this, and as I've said before, they've had projects of mine that we get to that point, and they've denied it, so. The perception that if you guys vote this variance, that, you know, he's banging nails tomorrow, that's not gonna happen.
I get
There's a
that.
process.
I'm trying to
But
get
getting-
the general.
Right, and getting back to the planning board in the subdivision, we'd have to design, the planning board regulations in the town require a 40-foot right-of-way. So the street would have to be 40 feet wide on paper. You know, typically you only pave 20, 25, or 20, whatever, it differs, but it's got to show a 40-foot right-of-way on paper. In the cul-de-sac, has to be 100 feet. Diameter, I keep forgetting that. 100-foot diameter. Again, it's not paved the full 100
So,
feet, it's usually something
given
less
the
than that.
math,
Given- Right.
looking at the plan, can that be done?
There's plenty of room to do that. As Mr. Currier pointed out, the driveway as proposed is going to displace about 200 square feet of 200 to 300 square feet of wetlands. A road on paper would cut further into the wetlands, so there would be more of a wetland effect. So that would have to be addressed between the planning board and the conservation. You know, I'd also, and not that this is necessarily something that's happening right now, there are other ways to get to this piece of property. This is a 4.5 acre parcel of land in Burlington where land is nuts right now. I think there were 6 houses that currently abut this property. If one of those houses ever came on the market and the guy who owns the property out back owns it, then you're gonna get a road in there with a cul-de-sac for at least 3 houses.
Much easier.
Much easier. And again, it circles back to, you can limit it to one house on a 4.5 acre lot with.
No, that gives a further explanation of
Right.
the one.
So to answer your question, I can't say for sure. There's definitely enough room to get a street and a cul-de-sac in there. I've done that before on 2 acres of land, and we're talking 4.5 acres of land. A cul-de-sac will create at least 300 feet of frontage for 3 lots, and depending on how long the street is to get to the cul-de-sac, that's going to create some more frontage. So there's plenty of room to do it. The wetlands becomes more of a factor if you're going to, at least on paper, put a 40-foot roadway in there. But there are ways of dealing with that as well, and at least has been.
I think the conservation was addressing that in terms of replication and
Right.
what that would require.
It would be replicating a 40-foot roadway. And again, we're not going to pave that, so I don't know if they necessarily make you replicate the paper part of the street. But replicating that would be more of an effort than the 200 or 300 square feet that it's going to take to replicate for the driveway. But it's doable, and there's ways of dealing with it, and it's been done before.
Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Well, first I want to say that I agree with Mr. Murphy's point of view, that we should be just focusing on frontage and all the conservation stuff. I don't want to call it white noise, but that's for those boards to handle and deal with. I agree with basically everything he's just said during this thing, except for the one part when you talked about the fewer butters that are, maybe, I think that maybe there's something we could do for them if we could get on the right side of the driveway or on that property side, some trees or something like that, if this was to go through, just to give them that privacy. I'm not asking for anything elaborate, huge or anything, but just some sort of buffer zone on the right, because those are the only people that are gonna be affected by it anyway.
The house on the current house that's at the end of Drake Road.
Those people came at the last meeting.
They were at the last meeting, and they had.
That's what I'm talking.
Right, and you're right, the driveway will come the closest to their house.
Right.
And I'm sure that Gary won't have a problem if the board wants some fencing along there.
Let me see what I got for room.
I just wanted to help minimize the impact on a couple of those people there.
The Faso property is the one that is most in question. The driveway is, again, because we're pulling it as far from the wetlands as we can to mitigate and to end up with that 300 square feet of area that would likely need to be mitigated. I would agree to, even if they would allow to come on their property and do a row of whatever kind of tree would make sense there, maybe an arborvitae, maybe a red maple, something, but we could certainly give them a buffer. Their house is probably about 26 feet wide. We could agree to do a 38-foot or a 40-foot buffer at the end of their house, a little bit ahead of it, a little bit behind it. So it would give it a nice buffer. They would not be able to see the driveway at that point from the house.
Fine by me.
So I have a question for you, Gary. In terms of where the house would sit in relationship to these neighbors, is it going to be uphill, or how is
It's going to be at a similar grade as the houses of where they are. It shows on the plan now, we're not tied to that being the location. I'm actually thinking, because we're going to be dealing with Concom on this, assuming we can get through your board, and in dealing with them, I'm trying to mitigate as much input from them. So in other words, we're probably going to try to pull the house back a little bit further to be out of their jurisdiction. So the only thing in their jurisdiction would be that driveway, which is only going to be about 12 foot wide. Typical driveway anybody's got is 12 feet. 12 feet is less than from here to that other desk. So it's...
So my question is, in terms of the height of the house and how that is going to impact, in other words, people that are in these houses along Chandler Road, are they going to be looking at?
No, their houses are probably 50 to 60 feet from their rear lot line. My house is going to be at least another 30 feet probably from that lot line. So they're going to be 80 feet, and there's going to be a pretty good amount of...
What's the height of the trees that are in that?
Oh, they're 30, 35, 38 footers, a lot of big trees there, and that will not be disturbed.
The elevation where the house is will be similar to the elevation as the streets, the house on Chandler Road. The one down at Drake Road is the low point. That's where the driveway will be going. They're at
Right, it's about a 24-foot elevation, as
Once you
Mr.
get up
Curry
there,
mentioned,
that height
going up
is
to where the house is going to be.
And that height will be similar to the house.
And the house is going to be a one that's designed, it'll have a first floor master bedroom, probably a kind of a mezzanine, two bedrooms upstairs. It's not going to be a huge McMansion, big 2.5-story colonial with a finished attic and something that's going to stick way up out of the ground. This is my final new construction home, I hope. Well, maybe I don't hope. I don't know. Maybe I'd like to have 2 more in the next 40 years.
John, do you have anything else?
No, I'm good. Not on this lot, I hope.
No.
So I just have a couple of clarifying questions, then we'll get to the public. So I agree with some of the board members and Attorney Murphy on that this board just looks at the frontage variance, whether or not the Conservation Commission and Planning Board are gonna weigh in later isn't as big of a concern. It is to some degree, because there's some stuff we can do here if we were to grant a variance that maybe other boards can't do. So keep that in mind. I did have a question, Attorney Murphy, on how it would work. If we granted you a variance, could you technically clear the whole lot if you wanted to?
Could we clear the whole lot?
Yeah, could you take every tree down?
No, may I answer that?
Yes.
Yeah, no, you couldn't, because there is wetlands in the front, their jurisdiction, you're gonna have to be at least 100 feet from that.
Okay.
We're gonna have our hands full to clear the small 300 square feet to get the driveway past the wetlands. So, and at the very top of the property, I think there's some wetlands that's bordering a little bit on this property and a little bit on the other one. That's gonna get 100-foot jurisdictional. So again, there's no reason. The subdivision beside us, there's, I think, about 28 houses of where our neighbors are now, and that was put on 20 acres of land, and we're putting one. So, the amount of the tree cutting that we would do, geez, if it would be a half acre, I'd be surprised.
Okay. think at this point we can, if there's no other comments from the board, we can open up the public hearing. Seeing none? Oh, sorry.
So you have no intention of going any deeper into the property than you have to with tree cutting?
Correct, depending on where we actually end up locating the house, and that's gonna have a lot to do with Concom. Again, trying to stay out of their jurisdiction, we may move it back, I think we need to move it back maybe 20 feet.
Yeah, so you're trying to
As we
stay,
move it back, the lot continues to get bigger, and I can move the house closer to the town land and further from the neighbors.
so, okay, so you're trying to stay close to the town line, as close to
Correct.
Drake Road as feasible? Okay.
Okay, so we'll open up this up to the public. We'll try to do it as orderly as possible with two different, people at home and people in the room. I think we'll start with people in the room tonight. So this gentleman right here up front, if you can just come up to the microphone.
Squeeze behind us, yeah.
You just introduce yourself again and,
Sorry?
if you can just introduce yourself and.
Frank Martin, 52 Chandler Road. First of all, I have nothing against Mr. Litchfield or anything. I just have a lot of questions I need to ask and would appreciate whatever answers you can give me anyway. First of all, have any of you been to the end of Drake Road to look at the site?
I have.
Okay, you've seen the fire hydrant there, you've seen the driveway going right at the end, and you know how it all kind of sets up back through there. If you stand there, you can see where the house possibly, we don't know yet, because he don't have a plot plan. I mean, he submitted something here, but he also just said he might move it here, he might move it there, he might move it somewhere. So before you decide anything, I would think you would want a plot plan. The person before us, you made them come back 3 times for plot plan, exact dimensions, everything else. This happens to be a 4-acre lot, still remains, if it's a 20, it doesn't matter. I think you need a plot plan to say exactly where the house is gonna be, to start with. I still don't understand why they keep dangling in front of you guys this subdivision thing. They didn't apply for it, or have they? I don't know. Have they applied for a variance for subdivision?
That wouldn't be for this
So
board.
why do they keep dangling that in front of you? They might build 3 houses. You hadn't seen the plot plan on that, have you? No. So I just think there's a lot of questions still out there to be answered that you guys need answers to before they come back and try to get this thing settled. There's just too many questions out there. Are there any rules as to how close driveways can be? Because I know he's talking about either possibly putting some trees in on the other person's property to go up through there for a driveway to go through. Are there any rules of distance between driveways that can be put in town?
Attorney
I
Murphy,
believe
do you
so,
wanna-
but you gotta refer to the building.
I'm sorry?
I don't think there is.
The only setback limits deal with structures, not driveways.
At the end of the cul-de-sac, I just wonder why Mr. Murphy, if he ever wanted to develop that land, didn't leave 100-foot frontage there to get into the property. I just don't understand it. And if he's on the application for this variance, he signed it also, because he actually owns the property. Why is he not here to either support or to answer questions on any of that? This gentleman does not own the property at the moment. He's here asking you to give a variance for a piece of property that he's not owned yet. I don't understand it. Has that happened before? Is that normal?
Yeah, he has a purchase and sales for it.
I'm sorry?
He has a contract with the owner to buy the land.
Hey, you got a
Yes, the
copy of that
variance.
contract?
No, but it was their
Oh, so
testimony.
you're taking his word for it?
Yes.
I'd like to see a piece of paper that says this, he's gonna buy it. I think you should have that piece of paper.
Both applicants are listed on the proposal.
I'm sorry?
Both applicants are listed on the proposal and came together to submit it.
I realize that, but that's a proposal for the variance. You don't have a thing that says the agreement between the two to sell the property, do you?
We
You don't know if he's gonna
That's-
buy it or not. If he gets the variance, you don't know if he's gonna,
It's contingent on approval. We see that all the time.
of that,
Approval of permits. The purchase and sale agreement is contingent on approval of permits. We
Of
see
the
that a lot.
variance.
Yes.
yeah. Oh, I'll tell you, I don't know about that. All right. All right, so I talked about the plot plan. Did you also get the email from the Drake Chandler Neighbors Group
I've
to
not-
the board?
I
have not
have it here.
You do have it? Because I noticed you read the other two, but you didn't bother to mention this one, so I was just curious if
Never
you got
received
it, make sure that you did have it.
Do you want me to,
Do you have a?
do you want to read it?
I've got a copy here if you want it.
I'll take one. I can read it into the record after the public hearing.
It is rather lengthy. It really reiterates all the points we had made before on this, and signed by all the property groups out there that was attached to that in the beginning. I still think there's too many questions that I feel you don't have the answers to yet, and you're gonna make a decision on giving somebody a variance for 37 feet. 37 feet is bigger than what he said he needs to put the driveway in, 40-foot spot. And it's going right beside somebody's house. Think about it, man. Think about it. I just don't think you have enough information to give him the variance. Really. And especially the fact that he's dangling this subdivision out in front of you. That drives me nuts. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll take you first and then you'll be next, sir.
I am.
Okay, I thought the other fellow was last time.
He was the engineer.
The other Gary? His other brother Gary? Yes, right?
Yep. You just introduce yourself.
Charlie Bobish, 82 Drake Road. And I don't know why all of you didn't get this. We sent it into the email that was listed for the Board of Appeals. I've got paper copies if you guys want.
Yeah, I like that.
And
I apologize about
I
that.
won't bore you with the whole thing. Just a couple of points. First it's been mentioned a couple of times that water flows out of the cul-de-sac into the wetlands. Actually, it's just the opposite. There's a curve around the cul-de-sac and water flows from east to west down Drake Road. It's all snow melt and rainwater, as I just witnessed but didn't take a video, flows away from those wetlands. Another point on water. There's been discussion about putting in trees, ozone, that sort of stuff. That doesn't affect me, but the houses on the even side of Drake Road are directly affected by this or potentially affected. If you go back to what was said in the conservation letter about removing trees and things like that, it can affect drainage. Right now, water flows north off of the hill where the proposed house would be. It also flows west because it's kind of a bowl formed. The water goes through those wetlands at the end of the cul-de-sac, goes behind 78 and takes a hard left turn and heads west behind 78, 80, and halfway through my property, 82. Now, at my property, there's a shallow drainage ditch. It's got a pipe that leads underground into the town's drainage system. It's maybe a foot internal diameter. For the past 43 years, I go out periodically, I get the leaves and stuff like that out of it to keep the water flowing. My concern is if the water flow is radically altered or increased, that could overflow. It would cause more wetlands to be formed in my property and in 80 and in 78, and also flow over the banks northward where it goes downhill into houses on Mallard Way. So there's more than just trees involved here. There is the flow of water that needs to be looked at. Now, in the letter that we sent in, and again, if that was not the right email address, if you guys give me one, I'll send it to you when I get home. But the main point, or several points, but one I wanted to highlight on here. When I looked at the town's website for property and went to that property, it's map 19, lot 10-0. The map, the town's map is current at least as of 2010. And it shows 3.39 acres, not 4.4. It's also coded 132. And I went to the state's handbook on real estate codings, and I can barely pronounce it, but that code means undevelopable. So one of the questions we raise in there is basically, how did that land evolve from that state in at least no earlier than 2010 to its current 4.4 acres, and it can be developed upon? And the reason I say 2010, in 2010, I had a two-car garage added onto the back, the north side, the back of my house, and that plot on the town's website shows the footprint of my house shows that two-car garage. So that map was current at least as of 2010, so it's not from antiquity and covered by the fog of time. So, any questions for me? Two of us drafted the letter, coordinated it by email with all of our neighbors, and then walked around and got signatures.
Nope, I apologize again, I didn't receive it. It's probably my mistake. I will get it into the record as soon as we're done with the public hearing.
Okay. Do you need me to send it to you by email to you guys?
I did receive it, I have it.
Oh, you got it?
here,
Did you
yeah.
share it with everybody?
I didn't know who was getting it or not.
Gotcha. Yeah, the intent was for all of you guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just to add clarification too, Mr. Barbish mentioned that the assessors map shows this parcel as being 3-point-something acres. The plan that is in front of Mr. Curry, that's been fully engineered by our surveyor, and it says 4.5 acres. The assessors maps don't have any official bearing to them. I don't know how that information gets there or who put it there, but we had it engineered and surveyed, and the square footage, the acreage shown on the plan that Mr. Currier has is accurate.
Thank you. Sir, come on up.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for recognizing me. My name is Bill Boyven, and this time I am representing the Conservation Commission. Last time I was speaking personally because we had not had a commission meeting. We did have an official Conservation Commission meeting, and the result of that was the letter that you read into the record. Thank you for doing that, so I don't have to. Appreciate that. I would like to counter a couple of points that were made tonight that seem to me to be efforts to minimize the impact on the public interest that was stated in our letter. First of all, someone was saying that, only 1% of the lot is going to be disturbed by filling this wetland. That is not the point. The point is that wetlands are being disturbed, legally regulated wetlands. It doesn't make a difference if the property is 1% wetlands, 50% wetlands. None of it can be destroyed under the rules of the wetland protection. Secondly, Mr. Murphy mentioned that, this is a half a mile from the reservoir. At no point in our discussion in conservation did we say this was going to have an impact on the reservoir. That's completely not the intent of our statement whatsoever. The impact on this is on the forest as a whole, and of course on the localized wetlands that are there. The precedent of setting a variance or granting a variance for something where the variance is immediately impacting a sensitive area that is adjacent to public-owned property, I think is something that you would want to consider in your decision-making. The other point that was made tonight was a comment that there wasn't much impact on the public because the only people impacted are a handful of abutters. And I don't believe that is the case. The impact here is the impact on the greater good of the community. And the community is definitely impacted by the health of that forest and by the protection of our wetlands. You know, as I mentioned previously, and as is in the conservation letter, the whole forest is part of the breathing clean air into the community that everyone enjoys. The forest and the use of it for recreation is something that everyone enjoys. And the impact of a development like this could cause, the impact on the greater good is a much larger greater good than just the handful of abutters. So I think there was effort to minimize in the description what the impact on the greater good is. So I would just like to make that clear that obviously the Conservation Commission feels that this is, that it has overwhelming public interest, is to meet the natural resource needs of the town, is the way they worded it, or we worded it. And then I just had one question about the approval and the purchase and sales agreement. Is the purchase and sales agreement contingent only on this approval by this board or by all approvals?
To be honest with you, I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't share that at this time.
Okay, I'm just curious.
It's not relevant.
Okay, it's relevant as to how the process goes in terms of getting to the point where you could actually finally build. Those are the only points that I have to make. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have a question.
Sure.
Haven't you replicated other wetlands for other people in town on other properties?
Yes, wetlands have been replicated. There's a couple of points that, this lot might be challenging to replicate. When you replicate a wetland, by law, it must be adjacent to the wetland that was destroyed and share the same hydrology. It must be fed by the same source. Now, the way this property is so narrow at the end where the wetlands are, I don't know if it's feasible, if there's any place to replicate this wetland that would meet the replication requirements and still be on this property. You know, that's something that a wetland scientist would have to come in and assess and present.
But isn't that something that you would do when he gets, if this was to be approved? Isn't that something that you would do if he comes?
Absolutely, yes. And there's also the issue, you know, replicating wetlands is not an easy task. You know, you're trying to create something that nature took a long time to create and say, okay, in 5 years it's going to be back to normal. It doesn't always work that way. What the Conservation Commission would do, we would say you're required to replicate the wetland, you've showed us a spot where it's feasible to do it, and then we would put something like 2 full growing seasons to show us that it has established itself successfully before we would release the bond, the security on the project. And sometimes it does not replicate successfully. And there was a reference mentioned in that letter that said it quite often does not replicate successfully. So replication is feasible, but it's not necessarily ideal.
If they comes before conservation and you people decide that he can't replicate it, it can't be done, doesn't that kill the project?
We would not be able to approve it if it could not do that, yes.
So, again, I want to just repeat, I don't think it's this board's position to be making Conservation Commission decisions. We should be talking about the frontage and how it goes to that. I'm not saying you don't have legitimate things, I just think that's the Conservation Commission's job. We're not engineers like you guys are.
I understand your point, and it's well made, but one of the criteria for approving a variance here is that whether it has an impact on the greater public good, or whatever the wording is there.
Yeah, that's individual's interpretation of greater good.
Exactly, and I'm giving you the Conservation Commission's interpretation of that.
So we're on the same page then, good.
In that sense, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else in the room that would like to speak? Sir?
I'm new to the meeting.
Sure, if you could just come to the
My name's
microphone.
Ed Rich, and I'm a resident of 84 Drake Road in Burlington. There's been a lot of questions going on, and a lot of questions and a lot of answers that I don't understand. As my colleague stated earlier, this land was once or is deemed by the town as unbuildable. So that means that the current owner has been paying taxes on land that is deemed unbuildable. Unbuildable is the word. So he's been paying a low rate for the last 20 years or 10 years, how long he's owned this. Now you're going to change the whole picture here by approving this variance to allow him to build. That land is no longer $45,000 in value. I don't know if, I imagine all of you people live in Burlington, you're all paying taxes in Burlington. I'm not sure if that's true, but I'm going to assume that so you know what you're paying for land. There's one bill that comes in, but it's based on the value of your land and the value of your structure. And I know what I've been paying, and I've been paying an awful lot of money, and it's nowhere based on $45,000 for a value of the land. So my concern is the town has been losing money these last 10 years, so it behooves you guys, for the town, to give them the variance, let them build it, then you can tax them at the high rate. But that's not what I want. That's not what I feel is fair. What's fair is letting the people who have been under the understanding and have been misled by realtors and previous property owners, that you're adjacent to conservation land. It's been a secret that land has been landlocked for how many years, and it's been deemed unbuildable, yet I believe that a lot of us residents were under the assumption that it wasn't privately owned. I understand the rules of privately owned land, and I appreciate your comments on that. But my point is there's one individual here, out of all of us have signed this letter, that just recently purchased the home within the last 6 months. And they were led to believe by whether the real estate people or the previous owner that they were going to live on a cul-de-sac. They paid probably in the realm of $100,000 of what that house is actually worth, because it was located, as you guys base the property taxes on how the land is valued. Well, that land was under the assumption that it was conservation land. These poor people are gonna have their lives changed. And they paid a premium for that home. And my heart goes out for them. So that's why I'm here. I'm 4 or 5 houses down, I'm 3 houses down outside of the cul-de-sac. So the impact on the house that he wants to build, on my part, personally, I'm not gonna see it. I'll experience a little more traffic. What I will experience is when I used to take my dog for a walk at the end of the cul-de-sac, yes, there is a trail leading into the other trails from that cul-de-sac. The only problem is you gotta have boots on to get to that trail because you gotta walk through the wetlands. And I've done it many a time. And that's all I can't articulate my feeling enough. And I know you guys have the power, and I'll abide by whatever you guys feel is correct. But I hope you can all sleep at night when you make the decision to know that there's a lot at stake here. It's not just one person, as my friend from the commission said, that it impacts the whole community as far as I'm concerned. It's a beautiful area. That's all I got to say. So I said my piece.
Thank you. Before we go on, Tom, can you just respond to the unbuildable comment?
To be honest with you, I have no idea what they're talking about. It's not, if it's unbuildable, it's unbuildable, and we wouldn't be here, so.
I can tell you, I have many communities, I look at land and they give it a buildable, unbuildable, developable, undevelopable, and many times they're inaccurate. They end up being developed, or some of them that say developable never can be developed. So it's
Owning that title, though, doesn't that have an impact on the tax rate?
Sir, you gotta come back up to the mic if you want to.
And it may have an impact on the tax rate, and if it is buildable and it is developed, that tax rate certainly changes. I've been on both sides of that.
Okay. Last question on that, and we'll get back to the public. Who makes the determinations of the town? if it's buildable or not for that.
I don't know. That's a good question, whether it's through the assessor's office when they,
But it's not the landowner.
I don't know.
I wasn't even aware of it, so the assessor's office, the assessing department's the one that creates the assessor's map, so if there's any comments or notations on that, that probably comes from them.
Okay. Sorry for the delay. Anybody else in the room that would like to speak for or against this application? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the, okay, sorry. On the back?
So actually, over here, so.
Can you just reintroduce yourself?
Oh, sure. My name is Jia, and this is my wife, Jing, and we're living at 79 Drake Road.
Yeah.
So on the map, it's just gonna be right beside the way that they're gonna to build.
Great, and I really want to thank the gentleman who actually spoke for us, because we are the one who lived like less than 7 months. And we bid this house, actually, we are among like 20 or at least like 16 bidders there, and we pay like 10% higher than.
More than 10%.
Yeah, more than 10% of listing price, because it is a cul-de-sac, and the realtor said like this like location for a realtor, right? That's like why like so many people are bidding with us, and we pay that high price, and because nobody's gonna build anything around us, and that's why we purchased the space. So we feel like yeah, really it's like actually we have really like general and maybe silly question. Just what would be the condition, like if you guys will consider like grant the approval. So that's our question. So if like I just heard that like for public goods or something, but for us like there's really gonna be a financial impact there. That's like personal, but I guess that also should be considered there. And we actually, we're really new in this neighborhood, and we rely on the judgments of our neighbors, and we think like we, in addition to the conservation thing, and this gentleman said like you don't want to discuss in this board because that's not your responsibility, but I guess that's like really like critical part of the public goods. And for us, we also have the financial impact. We probably gonna get hit like most. But the other neighbors also gonna get like impact there. So that's also part of the public goods. That's what I feel. So my basic question is like, how do you guys gauge this like, your standard to grant approval? Yeah. That's my question.
Sure. The easiest way to answer that is, it depends. Each case is different. It says right on our website, because I looked it up today, that each case we do not set precedents on. So each case stands on its own values. So it depends on the case and, what each board member's interpretation of public good would be for that specific thing.
Yeah, so my question over here is basically about still the frontage, right? Because that's the part that's where it's rejected at the beginning, and then they are trying to have some solutions to solve these issues of 100 feet frontage by law, right? So one way is that like relocating some like wetland areas, right? And the other one is trying to, I kind of missed the point, like
Right.
building something adjacent to
we
our
said really back this time,
property.
right? So we heard like you guys gonna, like plant some trees there to block the, us from the driveway, or what kind of things do you guys
Right.
plan to do?
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure I'm answering the questions exactly, so I'm not sure I understood the questions, but the, in the response to, I think it was Mr. Sullivan's request to try to give you, in the event that this,
No, don't, I can answer it if you like.
okay, go ahead.
So, in the event that the board decides to make a motion to approve this variance, one of the board members, I think it was John, asked if the applicant would be willing to put in a natural barrier on the driveway area, so that you have less of the privacy impacts that come with putting in the driveway.
Right, so what kind of like the barriers that will be, like natural barriers?
I think that it was suggested for either arborvitaes or some type of red maple.
You could work that out with the builder yourselves, probably.
So the natural barrier gonna be kind of evaluated by some expert, like how to build that, and then you will also have some expert evaluate that and consider if it's gonna approve or not. So is that gonna be the
No,
plan?
it's planting trees and shrubbery along behind your property, so that you'll have.
So it would hide the
to
driveway.
minimize the impact on you.
So the trees, right? So we're talking about
Yeah,
something.
so you can't see the driveway from your house.
But I would assume that if we are planning like to block the driveway, to block, to give the privacy, but meanwhile it's blocking the sunlight,
We just don't understand like,
right?
just planting trees, is there like some person who already evaluated this? Like, just planting trees gonna minimize the effect, just the, what's the standards there? That's actually a similar question. And so where are they gonna plant trees?
Happy to
So
put a fence if you prefer a fence. I mean, we'll do whatever. You can put a fence along here if you prefer a fence that has a.
I mean, that's another discussion is that do we want the fence by our yard?
yeah,
I mean, we're doing it to help you.
They're
so-
doing it to help you. If you don't want it, you can tell them you don't want it, and
No, we're just talking about like,
he's offering either a fence or something.
no, we are offering our opinions on what we want being out by our side, like the last one, right? It's about like the shed, right? The height of the shed, whether, so the neighbors have the right to provide opinions, right?
Absolutely.
Right, do they want the shed, do they want the shed to be, what's the height of it? It's the same for us. Do we want the barriers, right? Is that the barriers gonna affect us?
so just like we think that's gonna mitigate your trouble, but how does the owner think? So actually, that's what we are, just which way is actually gonna mitigate this? So who's gonna decide that? So it's like really, a lot of like really subjective questions there.
I could certainly offer from our side, if the board was inclined to make a condition like that as part of whatever decision they come up with, you could put language in there to the effect that it's to be agreed upon between the neighbor and Mr. Litchfield, and we'll do whatever you want when the time comes. I mean, it's, if you want a fence, we'll put a fence. If you'd rather trees, or you want a combination of both, if you want an 8-foot fence or a 6-foot fence, we'll do whatever you want. But if we're not sitting here tonight, we can't put a specific barrier on it because we don't.
Yeah, no.
I put language to the effect that the parties will work together and the builder will install whatever barrier the property owner wants.
Limited to a 50-foot, say a 50-foot length, which was gonna cover the property.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're happy to keep it open and flexible, and I assure the folks here that whatever they want, we'll do, but, that's ultimately you're the one that's gonna be looking at it, so you tell us what you wanna do, and we'll do it.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to say thank you. At least that you show like you will take some measurements to minimize that. But for us, the problem is that do we want that change or not? Right, that's our standing, understanding. Do we want the change or not?
And
So
if you-
that's our opinion.
Sure, and if you choose not to, obviously, we won't do anything, that'll be up to you.
So, no, so,
There were gonna
what
be a
are my
driveway.
point, there will be a driveway, that's a change, so, so that's what we want to say over here, though.
Just for the whole thing, we have been confused because we just moved here. And to be honest, before we moved in Boston for like just three years, right? Before we were just students in college. So we are trying to, fit in this like society system and to know like how, like this like the neighbors, how they're gonna talk to this like to the realtors, this kind of situation, how they're gonna appeal to the board. We are actually learning, so we kind of like feel like we have to, just try to understand if there's some like concrete standards there and how those things gonna be executed. And speaking of this topic, like not just us will be, affected, and we have like other neighbors, and they have like maybe different degree of like impact by this. So are you gonna talk to each of them and to see how you're gonna mitigate their trouble? I just feel like this really a harm to all of the community, and if you're gonna, do this kind of mitigation, I just feel, that might not be a really feasible way to do that. Yeah, it's like the whole neighborhood like issues there, but we're gonna be hit most, so that's just, you know.
Yep, no, I certainly understand. We will, before we make any motions, I'm sure that we'll be able to come up with some language or something that works for the neighbors and to some degree. So for now, we'll keep the public hearing open. I will make sure that you get a chance to talk about it a little bit more.
Sure.
As we
Thank
go
you
through.
for this opportunity, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
Again, Charlie Bobish, 82 Drake Road. And just want to let you guys know, if you look at the attachment to the letter we sent in, that's where we replicate what on the town website. And I think you guys would agree too. We want to know exactly what you're buying, because that says 3.39 acres, and you think it's 4.4, and it's buildable, and that has a code for undevelopable. Now, that could be outdated, not apply, or it could apply, so.
Yeah, like I
We got to
said,
get to the bottom of that.
I don't know what that designation means. I do know that that's a stamped engineering plan, so I'm pretty
So
confident that's.
so yeah, the town needs to take a look at that and give a clear reading to everybody. And then something that just hit me when you're talking to Jai and Jing about accommodations to help them. What's the recourse for Billy in 78 and Mac and 80 and myself in 82 if all this construction does in fact cause an overflow of runoff into our yards that overflows the capacity of that drainage?
So
What do I do?
we've gone over this, a couple of times now. This board in general can't really put conditions in place to make that necessarily happen. I think that's more of a Conservation Commission question, which if this is approved here, I think that it will go to the Conservation Commission and be able to make sure that there are some mitigating factors there. For this board, we're just looking at the frontage variance, and, we have three very specific, specific prerequisites that we have to go by in order to approve or disapprove a variance. So I think that is probably better off taken up with the Conservation Commission. It's the board that has the most experience with, water mitigation, all that. All of us in this board are certainly not as experienced as the Conservation Commission on some of that stuff. So I'd be hesitant to put any type of conditions on that may even hurt you in the long run, and because we just don't know enough about it. So.
Well, did I just hear correctly that you're asking these guys to work with Jai and Jing?
Yeah, for privacy concerns.
Okay. Overflowing water is not important? Depriving me of the use of my yard is not important?
Yeah, I think it's very important.
Well, how can you say that to them and then tell me, no, I've got to go to conservation?
Because I
A little
think
bit of a dichotomy
I think you'll get a better solution to Conservation Commission than you could with this board. I don't know anything about the water mitigation. So I've been on this board for 10 years. I know a lot about how to make sure that a road is private and it can't be viewed from.
But again, I don't see how you can make accommodation over here and then tell me, no, you can't for us.
We can.
I mean, it's free country.
Sure, we can, but if we put it on here, then that can't change. So if we do it wrong, because we don't have the experience to do it right, then you could be in more trouble than you would be if you went to the Conservation Commission.
Okay, say that again, I didn't wear my hearing aids.
Sorry, you could be in more trouble than if you went to the Conservation Commission, which this application has to go to anyway.
I mean, how am I in trouble for something?
We're not professionals in
We're not professionals in
conservation
conservation.
matters. So we could make a mistake and inadvertently you would end up not having the desired result you want.
We don't want to lock that in before it goes to the
You
conservation.
want to lock in, don't want to lock in protecting me from overflow?
Conservation handles that, not us.
I just want to understand, you don't want to lock in protecting those three houses from an overflow.
It's not our decision. It's not in the purview
Say
of
one
this
more time,
board.
you made an accommodation over there, but not for this one. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think at this point, we're going to go to the people patiently waiting at home. I see two hands up.
My screen here. I had one other thing too to add. When everyone was talking about the buildable, unbuildable, I actually got a message from Brenda from the planning board on the chat online. She said it's unbuildable because it does not have the frontage. If they get the variance, it becomes buildable. If it meets requirements, we wouldn't, if it met that requirement, we wouldn't be here in this discussion.
Perfect, thank you. So I see 3 hands up. Looks like it's up.
That's Barbara LaRue.
So Barbara LaRue, you want to start us off from home?
Thank you. Yes, hi, this is Barbara LaRue. I am on planning board. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I am respectfully asking tonight that you require the applicant to provide the information that the planning board requested in our letter before you make your decision. The applicant is telling you that this variance is the less impactful option as compared to a 3-home subdivision. But we don't know yet if a subdivision is possible. Our staff has looked at this, but they don't have the information they need in order to make that determination. It is not clear with the available information. It's unknown. Therefore, if you make a decision tonight, you're making that decision without all the information that you should have. Therefore, I am respectfully requesting that you delay until such time that you have all that information, specifically asking that you request that the applicant delineate the existing wetlands and that an engineer submit a feasibility determination before you make your decision. Otherwise, you're making your decision without all the information that you should have. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next person at home, Gail Lima.
Hi, thank you. I, like Bill, am also on the Conservation Commission. And there's just a couple points that came up that I just want to make sure that's clarified. One was, there was, in describing the impact kind of on the budding conservation land, there was a mention that this was over a mile or something like that from the reservoir. But the impact is, again, as Bill said, not so much on the reservoir, but the conservation land, which directly abuts it, and the trails that are in that area that if this house was built, you would be walking right behind this house and actually, unfortunately, and this is, not the applicant's fault, but just because of historical use of the land, that there's existing trail that's actually on our town trail map that's marked with a trail marker, that actually a short part of it is bisected by this, the back of this property. So with that point and that it's a direct abutter and it's of the conservation land, that I think it does affect the public good, because it affects the, people's usage, but also people's experience when they use the land. And for the other reasons that we listed in the letter, which I'm not going to list here because you've already read that, and I know that you've been here for a long time tonight. So I just wanted to clarify that point that the part of the effect and is that there is actually that's an active part of the conservation land that directly abuts this, and that's the part, as well as just the forested land that would be impacted. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see Christopher.
Hi, Chris Hogaboam, 48 Chandler Road. So I just have a question about, you're talking about putting in an agreement that if the variance is granted, then only one house could be built on the properties. So just out of curiosity, I believe Mr. Litchfield wants to live there, but suppose he decides that, after a year or two of living there, that it's actually quite lucrative to sell the house to someone else. Let's say he sells it to a developer who then decides to put in a road. Would that restriction of a single home still be in effect, or would that go away since they now have a road?
Yeah, so the restriction for the one dwelling would be in effect, leave in perpetuity.
That would go on record at the registry of deeds, that would go with the land.
So if somebody else was to buy it, they wouldn't be able to knock that house down and put a cul-de-sac in.
Thank you.
Anything else? Hearing none. Brenda?
Hi, folks. Brenda Rappaport, Chair of Planning Board. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I just wanted to clarify two things. It's my understanding if you do grant this variance, then it does become buildable. So therefore, you can require the development to meet stormwater standards and mitigation, so not to cause more runoff. So for example, same runoff pre and post construction, then conservation would further would add to that. So I just wanted to make sure that that was noted. Of course, you've received the letter from the planning board. And as Barbara LaRue had stated, we do wish that you would kindly take our request into consideration and request that the applicant fulfill the questions or that we've asked. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else at home that would like to speak for or against? Okay, hearing none. Sir, you want to come on up? We'll take one more question, and then we're going to keep the public hearing open after this, and everybody will get a chance to speak again if they need to.
Just two comments more than anything. 2 weeks ago, I asked if anyone on the board knew what the largest variance you'd ever granted before. No one seemed to have an answer down through there. I just think that you approve this, you're setting a precedent of approving over 1/3 of a requirement of the town bylaws to grant for something. Over 1/3 of the distance. To me, that's just setting too large of a precedent for somebody else to come back in and say, hey, well, you granted him 37 feet, you're not gonna grant me 35? You know, so it's, I just think you're setting too large of a precedent to be able to do that. And I still think you need a certified plot plan for the house on the distances where it's gonna be exactly, rather than it might be here, it might be there, it might be here.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could just, I'm going to read this because I wrote it down, assuming I might have to write this.
Could you make sure he's listening? Because we've said it 3 times, but he still hasn't heard.
So on our zoning board website, zoning boards are not allowed to make precedents in general. It says, there is no set formula by which the board can make its decision, and each case must be treated individually, must stand on its own merits, and is not decided by precedents. So we do not, each case is, we take it individually, we do not use other cases. Make a decision. So at this time, I would hold off on the public hearing. We'll keep it open for more comments later. I am going to read in to the record the Drake Chandler Neighbors Group letter. We, the undersigned, opposed granting the variance and respectfully request the subject appeal be denied. Many of our reasons were presented verbally at the Board of Appeals meeting on January 4th. Rather than rehashing them in this letter, we respectfully request that anyone who may not have attended, please watch the video of the meeting in order to be brought up to date and get a clearer and more complete picture. Here we wish to make our position very clear and offer more rationale based on information that came to light at the meeting and subsequent to the meeting. We provide the following additional rationale. The description of the land in the appeal differs from the description of the land found on burlingtonmass.mapgeo.io website, which says the land is 3.39 acres versus 4 acres stated in the application. See attachment 1. Also, of great interest, the lot in question is coded as 132. Per the Mass Department of Revenue, Division of Local Services, mass.gov website, the code 132 means undevelopable land. See attachment 2. This begets 3 questions. Question 1, what is the actual size of the lot in question? And question 2, can it in fact be developed? Question 3, if the land is indeed undevelopable, what we abutters would like to know how and when the status of the lot was changed. Please provide us history of the transactions that enable the evolution from undevelopable to the notion that the land can now be developed. Additionally, we would like to know if the proposed construction follows local and state statutes for development of a new subdivision. We believe it is in the best interest of all parties concerned, especially the Litchfield Company, to have accurate answers to these questions. By the way of history, people who have bought homes in the area have been told that nothing can be built to the west of Chandler Road, the north-south section, and west of the cul-de-sac, and 78 and 79 Drake Road. We know that Mr. Murray told this to Mr. Martin in a butter in 1973. Based on the information cited about Code 132, this was, of course, accurate. In April 2021, when Jiadu and Jingzhu purchased 79 Drake Road, they were told by their realtor that nothing could be built to the west of their home. So for 50-plus years, the land was undeveloped or conveyed to new purchasers in the area as such. If this is now found to be untrue, then everyone who has purchased a home based on this information has potentially suffered financial harm. The decision at the January meeting brought to light disparities between the appeal and what is really at stake. The application requests a variance, and feeling that Litchfield Construction will construct a road to the contemplated house. In this discussion, Attorney Murphy stated that Mr. Litchfield wants to build the house for himself, but if not granted the variance, will attempt to subdivide the property in order to build 2 or 3 homes. Thus, we are unsure as to what is really on the table here. Since the written application does not reflect verbally stated strategy, the appeal should be disapproved. This does not deprive Litchfield Company of a path forward. It can lay out its plans, drawings for subdividing the property and proceed through the town's approval process for consideration. A second point of confusion stems from the hardship stated in the application. Literal enforcement of the zoning regulation will prevent the applicant from being able to construct a house as proposed due to the frontage issue. This would create a substantial hardship on the applicant, financial or otherwise, as it would force him to incur the cost of construction and laying out the cul-de-sac in order to fully utilize the lot. At the meeting, Attorney Murphy indicated that Litchfield Company's purchase and sealing agreement does not bind it to purchase the property if the appeal is denied. Thus, if the variance is denied, Litchfield Company has no financial hardship should it choose not to exercise the purchase and seal agreement. Next, as discussed at length at the meeting, conservation is an overarching concern. The lot at issue is wedged between houses on Drake and Chandler Roads and has its far borders on the Mill Pond Conservation Land. This region has some important natural wetland areas, i.e. not man-made, and is in fact a living part of the woods forming the conservation area. We are concerned that building any homes on the lot may, with the anticipated excavation activity, potentially affect the flow of water into Chandler Drake Road area. Homes that currently have no wetlands in their backyards may find man-made wetlands forming, preventing the owners from adding to their homes or otherwise lose the free use of their property. Furthermore, the proposed construction may disturb the existing balanced and sustainable underground water table and could shift it to an unstable state. The existing underground water might find a new pathway, and the existing abutters could find themselves with exacerbated water leakage in their basements. We strongly suggest that an in-depth study of the likely effects of the construction on the local carbon footprint, the hydrology, and the character of the neighborhood is warranted before the Board of Appeals or any other town board can approve Litchfield Company's proposed use of the land. Thinking beyond our own concerns as abutters, we remind all addresses that the Mill Pond Conservation Area, consisting of 140 acres, surrounds the Mill Pond Reservoir and offers beautiful views of the landscape. It is the largest of the town's conservation areas and contains numerous trails that wander through dry woodlands and are near healthy wetlands and vernal pools. It provides a wonderful respite for every civilization. One of the undersigned walked these woods every day for 25 years with his 2 German shepherds. It was a place of solitude and great peace, just a mile from the center of bustling Burlington, and merely 15 miles as the crow flies from the crowded downtown Boston. We maintain that potentially transforming these 4 acres of privately owned property, part of the forested land abutting the conservation area, is not in the broader interest of the town of Burlington. Accommodating 1 more housing unit, or even worse, 3 homes, only benefits a few people, while at the same time eating away at our beautiful forest and disturbing the peace and tranquility of the neighborhood as it has existed for the past nearly 50 years. We would strongly support any effort for the town to purchase the lot in question and convert it to conservation land. Finally, we request the following. Zoning Board of Appeals deny the appeal. Conservation Commission initiate action to result in the town purchasing the land in question, adding it to Mill Pond Conservation Area. Select Board, Town Planning Board, and town meeting members support and advocate for the effort of the town to purchase the land. Respectively, Charles and Karen Bobish, Edmund and Beverly Rich, Dan Barr and Ravender Nair, Wallace and Rita McLean, Jidu and Jing Zhu, Vasilios Bokus, Chris and Kelly Hugenbaum, Frank and Paula Martin, Tom and Sue Vaca-Loftus, Irvin and Nancy Hudson, Michelle Katz, Linda McDonald, Deborah Plow, Sai Mila Varupu, and Sonali Pagda Nankar, Diamanto Baga Lafotis, Jin Lu and Jin Feng Jing, Saul and Renee Rappaport. I apologize if I butchered any of your names on that one. It's been a long night. Attorney Murphy, do you have any comment on that?
On your pronunciation of the names?
No.
No, I have no further comment, Mr. Chair. Obviously, any questions from the board, we're happy to answer them, but I think you've heard pretty much everything.
No, I've lost my. All right, so we'll take questions from the board while I find my questions. John, do you have any questions?
I don't know, you don't want to address a little bit about Barbara LaRue when she was talking about showing that it can be, you can foot the road, just to try to put everybody's mind at ease that it can be done.
Well,
It's not an easy thing to do.
what they're asking will, first of all, take a great deal of time. It's a full-blown engineered subdivision, and that's time, that's money. This time of year, it's not gonna happen quickly. So I don't think it's a practical request, quite frankly. And, I mean, I understand the just behind it. If we were talking an acre and a half parcel of land, and I was trying to convince you I have enough room to put a cul-de-sac in there, I could see where you say, wait a second, this is 4.5 acres. I've done them, with this board, I've shown cul-de-sacs. All you need, if you get a 100-foot wide piece of land, you can get the 100-foot diameter cul-de-sac on paper in there. 40-foot roadway on paper is 40 feet. This property is much wider than 100 feet. It goes out as you go deeper. Clearly, you can get a 40-foot road far enough back to get a 100-foot diameter cul-de-sac in there. And there's gonna be more than enough square footage. Again, I don't have an engineering plan to show you, but I would say common sense, we need 20,000 square feet to be a buildable lot. 4.5 acres has, do the math, 160,000 square feet or something. So I understand the request, and I think under different circumstances, I think it's a more realistic request. I think for the delay and the cost that would be involved in providing that before you guys even take up the variance, I think is unreasonable, given the piece of property we're dealing with.
We chose this path because of the expense.
John, do you have anything else?
No questions at this time.
Joe?
I agree that the request for the subdivision is not needed. We're not here for a subdivision. The application is for a single lot. And this plan has some delineation on it that was in question. There is a flag in here. And, it is a plot plan as well. It does show a house to be built. It does show the driveway, so the plot plan does exist. The delineation does exist. And I think that's it.
All right, Jeff?
Joe pretty much answered my question as far as on the plot plan. We're not going for any sideline variances, so we don't need those numbers recorded in anything. So that's all I got.
Same here. I mean, if any other commission comes in and puts in restrictions that may move the house, then we could look at other variances, but we're really being asked about that frontage.
Anything else?
Nothing else.
All right, I have a couple of questions. Some of the neighbors brought up a couple of good points. So you said the driveway is gonna be 12 feet wide roughly. Why do we need a 37-foot variance? Why do we need the variance to be so big?
The requirement's 100 feet for the
But did you only,
frontage.
We're just asking for a variance. We have 63 feet of frontage. We just want a variance saying that that's sufficient frontage to get a building permit. We're not going to use all that to pave.
you're not using the whole thing, but you just, yeah, okay. That makes sense. Other question, and, you know, I had the same comment I was gonna make. You've talked a couple of times of, oh, it might be 20 feet back here, it might be 20 feet back there. Typically, when we approve a variance, we base it off of a plan.
And the plan is before you. The location of the house is going to be dictated more by conservation than certainly by here. And my idea is to try to minimize whatever impacts there'll be with conservation. But at the end of the day, you know, that when I present the plan to them, it will have the house exactly. It will also deal with things like roof runoff and things that some of the neighbors have concerns about. But they drill down pretty heavily, and that's when the engineering from my side is presented to them. They could even ask for a third-party person that they charge me for to weigh in to examine the engineering. But all of that comes to pass in dealing with stormwater runoff because it is conservation. Otherwise, on a single-family home, stormwater runoff rules and regs don't apply. But because we have Concom there, they will apply.
To your question, Mr. Chairman, also, we're not going to be looking for any setback variances. It's going to be within the envelope of the bylaw. So, you know, generally, we don't locate a house at this stage of the game because when you get out there, it might shift a little, it might turn a little, or whatever, you know.
Okay. And, you know, my last comment really is, I don't know what the rest of the board thinks, but I am a little concerned with the new neighbors. I think it would be nice, you know, and I don't know whatever else thinks, it would be nice if, you know, Attorney Murphy and Litchfield Company, you know, maybe sat down with them and talked about what we have for natural or fencing and all that, so they don't have to feel like they're forced to make a decision in the middle of a meeting.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I'll say on the record that we're happy to do and meet with them, and, you know, within reason, obviously, but we'll give whatever kind of shielding or however you want to term it, whether it's fence, or trees, or bushes, or whatever, and we'll sit down with them. You know, we got a ways to go before, as I said earlier, before this thing goes anyplace, so clearly, certainly before we pull any building permits or whatever, we'll have that discussion. And it can also be incorporated, by the time this gets to Concom, and if it gets by that hurdle, we're that much further along, perhaps the abutters have a better idea of what they might want, and Concom can make that as a condition of their decision as well.
So, let me ask the question, if we were to put, what type of language could we put on there so that I don't wanna, if we were to make a motion to approve on this, I wouldn't wanna hem in the builder or the neighbors to have to do something specific.
Or could you just call it a buffer zone to be agreed with by them? If 50 said it'd go 50 feet. Is agreed to by them and the neighbors.
Or as ordered by the Conservation Commission if they choose to weigh in on it.
I don't have any there's no other comments to the board. I'll open her up maybe one last time to the public. Any other comments? Moment? No. Is there anybody out there that would like to speak for or against? Just like, as I said last time, if there's something new you'd like to bring to the table, everyone's allowed to speak. But if there's something new in the audience currently. Is there anybody in our virtual world that would like to speak for or against? Hearing none. I think at this point we can close the public hearing, can always open it later if we need to, but.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion has been made and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any other comment from the board or motions?
What's up? The motion?
Fortunately, I can't make a motion.
Motion to what? Make a motion to approve or deny the variance.
You have to make one or the other. So, it would go with something like, make a motion to approve Chandler Road for a
Got the number?
63.05-foot front side variance. front
Make a
line.
motion to approve a variance at Chandler Road and Drake Road for a 37-foot variance.
There's a couple of conditions that I think we talked about. One being that there would be one dwelling on the property, and one being that there'd be a 50-foot buffer zone headed across this property right here.
Which is marked phase
Agreed to with the neighbors or
79.
by the Conservation Commission. So you have to say it.
Like I make a motion to, for 79 Drake Road,
So just say, make a motion for Chandler Road, rear of Chandler Road,
make a motion for rear Chandler Road
to approve their front line variance
to approve the front line variance
of 37 feet,
of 37 feet on Drake Road,
with the condition,
with the condition
single dwelling,
for a single dwelling only, and about 79
and then
buffers.
the buffer zone,
Buffer zone at 79 Drake Road,
50 feet.
Approximately 50 feet.
Either agreed to by the neighbors or
Either agreed to by the neighbors or
the Conservation
the
Commission.
Conservation Commission.
Second be subdivided.
Yeah, we can put that in there.
Point of information, Mr. Chair. A suggestion perhaps, because I know those, the language said a single dwelling. You might want to add in, the applicant agrees that the property will not be further subdivided into buildable lots. Just to
Any
avoid.
additional buildable
Any additional buildable lots, just to avoid any confusion, because clearly we're building a single-family dwelling, but I don't want people to think we can then just put.
And the applicant agrees to build a,
Applicant agrees to the condition that the property will not be further subdivided to create additional.
agrees to
buildable
further,
lots.
agrees
Do not subdivide though.
to not subdivide, it's only for a single family.
Do not further subdivide the lot to create additional buildable lots.
And not to create additional buildable lots.
Has that been seconded?
Second.
Let me, give me a second, and I just want to make sure I read this right. Okay, let's try this one time again. All right, motion has been made and seconded to approve Chandler Road, rear of Chandler Road, AKA Drake, for a front line variance, 37 feet, with a condition that the buffer zone, over the driveway, the first 50 feet of the driveway, the type of buffer zone will be agreed to by either the neighbors or the Conservation Commission, and that the lot will only have one single dwelling and not be allowed to be split into other buildable lots. Got everything? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you both for your time.
Members of the board, thank you.
All right, we still have one more hearing for Butterfly Net Worth. Come up to the, if the applicant is here, you can come up to the microphone.
My wife always said I could clear out a room. Good evening. My name is Jeff
Hold on
Sepp.
1 second, let's let
Okay,
the,
sure. Joellen, do you want the certified mailings? I got it.
No one's even left online.
I thought this was going to be the most fascinating part of the meeting, so.
well, thank you for your patience, and please feel free to get started.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Sarro with Batten Brothers Signs, here on behalf of Butterfly Network. Along with me is Mike Ney, who's a program manager for Butterfly. So Butterfly Networks is a company, they build ultrasound equipment and software. Currently headquartered in Guilford, Connecticut, but they're moving the headquarters to 1600 District Ave in Burlington. They have some space at 800 District Ave, but they are going to move over to 1600 and occupy the entire building. It's about 63,000 square feet or so. So we're here before you tonight seeking approval for a sign that's larger than the zoning bylaw allows above the first floor, as you can see in the drawings. That is their logo. The sign overall measures 56 inches on the butterfly component of it with a 33-inch letter B and 257 inches wide. It's similar in style, design, everything to all the other signage that's in that area. Very similar and exact placement as the time payment sign that was previously there that was approved by the board. The sign allows them placement on the building and the proportions of the sign of the building, which we feel look good, allows visibility from District Ave. 1600 is set back about 520 feet or so from District Ave with a large landscape roundabout mound in the middle. Sort of limits the visibility of the building. The sign does not face any residential areas, so we don't see it detrimental, and as I said, it's similar to everything else that's there. And that's about all I'm going to say.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, I mean, this is larger than the variance by quite a bit, and it's double the length, albeit shorter. I mean, are there any other options to get it closer that you've looked at? Is there?
The I think it's a 6-foot max height and a 10-foot max width that they allow, which if this were on the first floor, it would be allowed by right. I'm not sure why the zoning bylaw reduces the size significantly on the upper level signage, other than to maybe control signage on the 128 belt and things of that nature. We do feel that it fits the space very well. It's well within the natural breaks of the building. It lines up with the soldier course that's right above the 3rd floor window at the bottom edge, there's a significant amount of negative space in the dimensions of the sign that is occupied between this, the space between the butterfly, the letter B, the space between the letters and the top of what would be the butterfly. So we do feel that it's proportionate to the building and that, that it fits the space. I mean, of course, if we were to make it match the criteria, it wouldn't be visible at all. It would be, I think, 2 foot tall or something along those lines with the proportions that I came up with. So.
All right. Any other questions?
No other questions.
Jeff?
This is on the side face in the cul-de-sac going towards District Ave.
Correct.
Okay, that was my only question.
Joe?
No questions.
Mark?
No questions.
What other signs are on the front of that building heading down there?
There are no other signs on that building.
That's the only sign that's visible from District Road?
Don't you have Charles River Lab building?
But not on this.
Not on this building?
Not on this building. No, this is the only sign that's on this building. There is no other, and there will be no other signs on the building because they are full tenancy.
Okay, that's good to know. That was basically my only question.
Well, we'll make that a condition anyway.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. I guess we'll, if there's no other questions or comments, we'll open it up to the public.
Well, I wanted to talk about lighting and just
Okay,
time for lighting and the lumens and all that. Nobody said that out loud or anything. You know that we have a requirement for minimum, no more than 90 lumens per square foot.
Yep, and the lumen calculations were
I didn't see
included as part of,
I don't have that page. Just what?
oh, you don't, they were included as second part of the
220.
overall.
Overall, but not per square.
No, that's at the sign module. The total calculation is 72 lumens per foot on the sign by the lighting engineer.
Are there times on the lighting? It's going to be lit 24/7? Go off at a certain time?
Ideally, it would be 24/7, but we can make it work on a timer if need be.
Down in an area where it's not going to affect anything,
Yeah, there's no-
anybody.
So residents or anyone
Yeah.
in the area, I mean,
Not so hung up on that either.
Is that north of the hotel where it could? Yeah, no, it's not gonna impact the hotel.
fine. The only thing, after we open the public hearing and before somebody makes a motion, I would recommend anybody who does that, they say no other signs, even if I write as a condition as well.
Yeah, right.
So if there's no other comments from the board or anything, we can open it up to the public. Seeing none. We'll open it up to the public in the room. Seeing nobody, we'll go to the Zoom meeting or WebEx meeting. Also seeing nobody. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, any other comments?
Looks appropriate to me for the building.
I think it looks pretty good. They're the only tenant. Sounds like it would be approved if it was on the first floor, but they'd have no visibility, so it makes more sense for it to be on the second floor, the higher levels. So I don't have any problem with it. I don't know. The only thing I would recommend on a motion is that we do 90 lumens per square foot and no other signs, even if by right. Any other comments? Motions? Fortunately, I cannot make a motion tonight, so.
Make a motion to approve the sign variance for 1600 District Ave in accordance with the plans that were filed here 10/27/21. There are a series of, that's the application number.
That's the plan date, right?
Plan date is 10/27 and
Yep. Sheets 1 and 2
sheets 1 and 2
and 3.
with the conditions of lighting restriction of no lighting that is
90 lumens.
90 lumens, in excess of 90 lumens per square foot, and no other signs, even if by right.
Second. All right, so a motion has been made and seconded for 1600 District Ave from Butterfly Net Worth to a wall sign variance, as shown on plans dated 10/27/21, sheets 1 and 2, and plan dated 12/17/21, sheet 1, with the conditions of not to exceed 90 lumens per square foot and no other signs, even if by right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.
Congratulations.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks. Thanks for your time tonight.
Appreciate it.
Your,
Thank you,
and
everybody.
the entertainment.
Everybody get the minutes? Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes,
January 4th.
January 4th.
Second?
Second.
Make a motion to approve the minutes. January 4th. Made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any other business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.